All right. Hi, good evening, Natalia. How are you? How do you feel today?
Hi, I'm fine. Yes, thank you.
Great. That's great to know. Let's begin, please, with today's class. We have to go back to our lesson. Remember, we're covering gerunds. We have four main ways of using gerunds, and we got to see two, right? So to start today, please, Natalia, I want you to tell me what you remember about the previous class on Wednesday about gerunds. What do you remember about the two first ways to use it?
Uh, you use gerunds when you talk about an actions, uh, and in the first part of the sentences as a subject.
Okay,
Yes.
the first one very specifically, that's good. They are going to be actions, and even more than verbs, they are going to be nouns, right? And they are going to be nouns that come from verbs, right? Because we only add ing, but we have to remember that they are not working as verbs. They are going to be working as actions, as you were saying, but mainly activities or nouns, right? Good. And that's explanation, good. And the first one is what you said. As they are nouns and they are not verbs, they can be the subject of our sentence, right? And you can say learning English, right, has become a requirement, right, nowadays. Or knowing, right, how to speak English has become a requirement nowadays, right? Doing this activity or doing exercise every day, right, has to be or is or will be, right, my priority, right, or something like that. But in those cases, the gerund is the subject. Okay, that's the first type. And what about the second type that we learned on Wednesday, Natalia? What's the rule for the second type? When do we use it? After what exactly?
um, after after the pronouns.
They are not exactly, they are after the pronouns, but they are in a better way after the pronoun or noun, after the verb, and after specific verbs, right? You have a specific list of verbs, and only after those specific verbs you can use gerunds, right? I don't know if you remember one of the verbs. Do you remember
Mm,
one of them?
mm, I have
What could it
very
be?
bad memory.
All right, no worries. So that's what we're going to try to remember now. Okay, let's work on the review then. It's good. You mentioned one that is very important. Let's remember then. Verbs are nouns in this case, right? They have ing, but they are not verbs. They act as nouns. As they are nouns, they can be subjects and objects. Okay, mainly those two. They can be subjects and objects. Let's start with subjects. Actually, we did, right? When they are subjects, they are the first element in our sentence. Then we have the verb, and then we have the complement, right? You ask if this is passive voice. No, right? To be passive voice, we need always the verb to be plus a verb in the past participle, right? For example, the vaccine was created by this country, right? Was created, that's passive voice. But in this case, this is just active voice, but it's just a description, right? It's just a description about something, about the activity of learning English. So you can say that activity is very easy, right? This or that is my favorite activity, or this is what I love. All right, so it's just describing something, but not exactly as passive voice. That's the first one. The second one that you also practice with me is after specific verbs. Okay, you have a specific list of verbs and you have to use the gerund after those verbs, right? Remember, if after enjoy you want to use an activity, but you use infinitive, that's incorrect. If you use the base form, that's incorrect, right? And I told you, if you say I enjoyed to live in France, that's always incorrect. Okay, it's never going to be correct. If you say I enjoyed live in France, again, always incorrect. There's not a single situation in which that's going to be correct. All right, always and only the gerund. It happens with enjoy, discuss. Remember, these two can be exceptions, but most of the time with dislike and finish, with mind, suggest, recommend, keep, plan. avoid. All right, we have to use a gerund if we want to use an activity, but you don't need to use an activity. Right here, you can say, I enjoyed the movie. And that's it, right? That's not gerund, that's not infinitive, that's not base form, that's just a noun. All right, so you can use
Mhm.
nouns, you can use other things here. But if you choose to mention an activity, it has to be the gerund. All right, let's have that in
Mhm.
mind. And now with you, only read the verbs, please, Natalia, so that we can remember and try to memorize some of them. Okay, just read the list of
Mhm.
verbs, please.
Okay. Enjoy, discuss, dislike, finish, mind, suggest, recommend, keep, avoid.
Great. Now from these ones, Natalia, again, you have to choose the ones that you know you use more. If you know that you use more some of these verbs, try to memorize those. All right. My recommendation, enjoy is very common, and this is
Mhm.
always the main example for gerunds. Okay. Enjoy is a good word to memorize here. Suggest and recommend also because we can use these verbs a lot. And perhaps also avoid, right? You were asking, but avoid actually is very important. So if you start with those four verbs, it's going to be good. But little by little, you have to memorize the list because again, there's a big list. As I told you, if you go to our A7 class, Natalia, in the A7 class, you also have a gerunds presentation, and in that presentation, in the last part, you have a link that gives you access to a web page that is giving you a complete list of verbs. All right.
Mm.
After those verbs, you use gerund, and after some other verbs, you use infinitive. Okay. And again,
Okay.
here, there's no way to understand the logic because it's only memorizing. Okay. Or,
Mhm.
or, or you memorize the list of verbs, or you practice a lot, a lot, a lot. So it's going to be natural for you. All
Mhm.
right. Those two ways. But that's the second one. Okay.
Okay.
This is review. Let's go to the next one. This is just practicing. All right. It's going to be just practicing and practicing. The third case, Natalia, that we have for today is after special phrases. I'm giving you these examples. These are the more common ones, all right? You have other ones, but let's say that these are the ones that you always use with gerunds. To be busy, can't stand or can't bear, can't help. That can't help means can't avoid, right? And yesterday we explained the word avoid. These are expressions, so they are not always going to be literal, all right? They are going to
Mm.
be something else. Okay, this doesn't, it's not like I cannot help you with this. It's not help, okay? Help here is not help, it's avoid. I can't
Mhm.
avoid something that you have to do because you cannot control yourself. All right. Then feel like, again, it's not comparison. It's not I feel like you. No. Feel like means wanting to do something, to have the desire of doing something. All right. And this is literal. Spend one's time and worth, right? Worth, and it's when it's a good idea doing something because it's rewarding, it's positive for you. All right. It's always good doing the action that you say it's worth doing. Okay, but we're going to check one by one. Let's please read the examples that you have here, Natalia.
Mhm. To be busy. He's busy reading the paper. Can stand. Can stand beer. I can beer being looked at. Can help. I can't help eating chocolate. Feel like. We feel like having a cup of tea. Spend one's time. They spend their time reading. Worth. The book is worth reading.
All right, thank you very much. With just one element in pronunciation, this one, if you read like beer, beer is beer, right? Beer, but that's something else, right? That's a
Beer.
beverage.
Mhm.
But that's not correct. Here, this is bear.
Ah,
Uh-huh.
bear.
Bear, exactly. Can
Mhm.
bear. Okay, and bear and stand here, it's the same. It's something that you don't like. It's something that you dislike a lot. You cannot even do it because it's so annoying for you. All right, something that you don't like at all, something that you hate in a certain way. Okay, that's when you say I
Mhm.
can't stand, I can't bear. So after that, you use gerund. When you hate something in a certain way, you can say, I can't stand listening to, I don't know, any style, right? I can't stand listening to this type of music. Okay, but you say listening to. So after can stand or can bear, they are the same. Okay, they are synonyms. You use gerund. All right, let's try to understand one by one. To be busy, this is easy, right? It's just literal. You can say, I am busy doing my homework, right? She is busy studying for the test, right? To be busy is to be occupied. That's just literal. Can stand, can bear is what I said. Can help is what I was telling you, right? When you cannot avoid. Can help and can avoid, they are synonyms, okay? They are the same and they are expressions. And again, they mean that you cannot control yourself doing that. That for you is difficult to control it because you feel tempted, okay? You have temptation of doing that action. For example, you love eating chocolate, okay? You shouldn't eat chocolate because it's not good for your health. But you say, I can't help eating chocolate. It means I can't avoid eating chocolate. And in other words, I can't control myself, and that's why I still eat chocolate. Okay? Can help means that you cannot avoid that action. Feel like means, again, want. It's just like want. Okay, remember, it's not comparison, it's not similarity, it's not like I feel like you or this feels like something else. No, here feel like together it means want. We feel like having a cup of tea means we want to have a cup of tea. Okay, instead of saying I want to go to the movies, you say I feel like going to the movies. All right, instead of I want to dance, you say I feel like dancing. Okay, is to have the desire of doing something. Then spend one's time, that's also easy, right? It's what do you spend your time on? So you say I always spend my time or most of my time reading or doing homework or studying for tests or I don't know, right, having conversations with friends. So something that you spend your time on, that's very simple. And worth, that sometimes for some people it's complicated, but I will use another structure that I'm going to write it next to you, right? And this is more common. All right, it's worth. When you say it's worth, again, it's like it's a good idea doing this action. It's positive because it's rewarding, because it's going to have a good result. And you can say it's worth, again, learning English. You can say that. It means it's a good idea because you will have a good reward if you learn English. It is worth studying for your test 1 week before. Why? Because you're going to memorize the things, you're going to be better prepared than if you study just the day before. Okay, so anything that is a good idea that has good results is worth doing. Okay, and it is worth doing. But that's it. I want to know if you have questions about these expressions, Natalia. Let me know, please.
I help. Can't help is like you say, I can't resist, but I don't know.
Yeah, actually, that's a very similar thing. In English, it's better to say can help or can avoid. Can resist is similar. I mean, in Spanish, the translation to Spanish is more understandable. So that's why I say yes. But in a certain way, yes, if you cannot resist the temptation of doing something, that can help. Exactly.
Okay.
Uh-huh. Because you love that. You love eating chocolate. You love doing something and you cannot control yourself. So anytime you see chocolate, you want to eat it. All right? It's like that. Uh-huh.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So if you have no more questions, let's work please with some examples then, Natalia. From these ones, only pick 3 of them. Okay? 3 expressions. And let's go to the document, Natalia. Then the document is in the same place. Go to Google Classroom, go to classwork, Remember, and in the first part, if it's not in the presentation, it should be in Unit 1. It says, right, classwork. Look for your name. It says classwork, Natalia. Open that one, and let's write, please, 3 examples, okay? One with any of these expressions that you choose, okay? So all in all, in a summary, choose 3 expressions and write 1 example for each expression. All right.
Is the same link? Or
yeah, it's the same.
the
It's
last
the same
class?
place. Exactly. It's always the same place. If you go to the again, everything is in Google Classroom. If you go to Google Classroom, remember you go to classwork. Then after you go to classwork, you have to go to Unit 1, and it says, actually, I'm going to bring this here. It's going to be in courses information. Okay, in courses information, you have classwork, all units,
Okay.
and there's your, let me update it.
In working class, unit
exactly,
4?
in the presentation, right? Courses information and contact. You're in A8,
Okay.
right? The course A8.
Yes.
Okay, good. So classwork,
All
all
units.
units. Exactly. And there you have one with your name.
Okay.
All right. So let's open that one. I'm also opening it now. Let's do it over there, please. So only 3 examples with 3, let's say, expressions that you choose. And remember, the main idea of this lesson in Natalia is that you have to use gerund after these expressions, right? He's busy reading. I can bear being. I can help eating. It feels like having. Spend one time reading, and it's worth reading once again. Okay, the main idea is the gerund. Let's do it, please. Let's have 3 minutes. If you have questions, let me know. If not, let's begin, and we check in that time, please.
Okay. Okay, I finish.
Good. So I'm going there with you and I'm here with you. Let's replace those examples, Natalia.
Okay, I can stand study at a noisy place. He feels like taking vacation again. And in the third, I put two options because I'm not sure if I can use like that. For example, practicing sports is more healthy for your body, or health for your body is worth practicing sports.
Okay, yes, in the last one, it's a little bit tricky because it's a special expression that has one translation, all right, in English or in Spanish. I'm going to tell you at the end, I believe. We're going to change details about that, all right, because you have the main idea in the two of them, but actually the two of them need changes. All right, they need changes.
Mhm,
But let's begin with the first two. All right, you're using I think them correctly. Just we're going to change some words. In the first one, the preposition at, all right, at remember is going to be just for public places, but direct public places or specific places that has a proper name. Okay, for example, you can say at, I don't know, right, Buenos Aires Theater. That's going to be at because it is a specific
mhm,
place, or at the theater because it's general, generic, and public place. But when you're talking about this place, as they are going to suggest here, it is going to be just in. Why? Because
mhm,
you're talking just about a place and you're talking about how noisy it can be being in exactly inside that place. Okay, we don't know if it's a
mhm,
public place or if it's a house. If it's your house, it can be any place, right? So if, as it's general, but not specifically public, it's going to be in, all right, because it refers to anything. Now, he feels like taking, Now, vacation, remember in this case, it's going to be like something that you can count. So, a
ah,
vacation, all right? Exactly,
mhm,
that's it. So, we're going to correct it here with the two elements with in and a vacation. Now, in the next part, remember you only mention something that is worth doing or that is worth, and afterward, we need the gerund. All right. In the first part, you have two options. Remember, the two
mhm,
options are actually the first is the one that you have in the example. The book is worth reading, okay, or something that is worth doing. So here, for example, if you say practicing sports is worth, all right, but how could it be? In this case, you're already doing something there. So you have one option here. Instead of that, you can say it is worth practicing sports. All right. And then you can clarify why. So this is good. But if you say health for your body, no, here you don't need to say anything in specific. You only need to say it because it actually is referring once again to practicing sports. Again, it's an impersonal subject that cannot be replaced. Okay, it's just an expression. It's worth doing something. Okay, it's worth practicing sports. It's worth watching that movie. And then you can say because it's good for your health. Okay, so you say it's worth practicing sports because it's healthy for you, or it improves your health. You can give any reason that you want then, Natalia, but
mhm,
it's going to be afterwards.
mhm.
Okay, but the expression here will be just it. Always it, because this is an impersonal expression. Okay, so one more
Okay.
time. It is worth practicing sports. And then if you want again, you give your reason, right? Because it is healthy, right? Sorry, healthy for you. Let's say, okay, that's going to
Mhm,
be your reason. Now,
mhm,
here, if you want to mention something at the beginning, all right, then at the end, you're going to say just a generic verb. So, for example, you can say practicing sports is worth doing. This work is worth reading. All right, that movie is worth watching. This class is worth taking. Okay, so you say something general at the beginning, and the verb that you have to use or the activity after that has to be one more time. a gerund, but a very generic gerund. Okay, something very generic. For example, in this case, practicing sports is worth doing, could be directly, but it has to be just something general as that. After a word, it has to be something that clarifies that action. All right, it cannot be something else because it's like something, the closest translation, all right, to that one I'm going to write is that one. And when you say again one or the other one, you don't mention actually a verb afterwards. All right. For example, you can even say even practicing these words, practicing sports is worth it. Okay. Some people directly are going to say it's worth it, and the translation is the one that is in the chat. Okay. Playing or watching that movie is worth it. Doing this action is worth it. So you can also use it and only it just to refer back to that idea again. Okay, so it
Okay.
is going to be at the end or at the beginning. But again, the translation is what you have in the chat, and these are the two possible ways to organize this idea. I don't know if you have any questions about this, then Natalia, let me know, please.
And when you say practicing sports is worth doing, you can use two gerunds in the same sentence. No, it's incorrect. No, that's incorrect.
Yes, exactly, because as they are just nouns, you can use gerund as the subject and gerund as the object. And to avoid that, if some people want to avoid that, it's not incorrect, but instead of saying doing, because we understand that, of course, practicing sport is worth doing, as it is only say that if you want to put emphasis on that. If you don't want to put emphasis, just say it instead of doing, and for some people, and even it's going to be better. Okay, but it's not incorrect if you say gerund at the beginning and gerund at the end because they have different purposes.
Okay.
All right, good. So there you go. Now we're going to go to the next one. That is going to be our last for this lesson. And then we have the next one that we're going to try to cover in a certain way. Prepositions. Okay, let's read all these examples plus the first explanation, please, Natalia.
Can you sneeze without opening your mouth? She is good at painting. She avoided him by walking on the opposite side of the road. We arrived in Madrid after driving all night. My father decided against postponing his trip to Hungary. There is no point in waiting. In spite of missing the train, we arrived on time.
Great, thank you very much. Just one word for pronunciation is going to be this one. Instead of I, opposite, is going to be only E, opposite.
Okay, opposite.
And the opposite, exactly. Okay, so here, this is a rule 100% of the time, Natalia. If you have a preposition and you want to mention an activity after the preposition again, always gerund. Okay, you don't say, can you sneeze without open your mouth? No. Without to open your mouth? No. Always opening. Good at painting, by walking, after driving, against postponing, in waiting, of missing. So all of these are prepositions. After all prepositions, 100% of the time, always gerunds and only gerunds. All right. So that this is just a rule. You can apply it anytime that you want to use, again, an activity after the preposition. Remember, you don't always need an activity. For example, if you ask something, right, can you do it without money? If you say money, money is not an activity. Money is just a noun, right? So, of course, it's just money. So, can you start a project without money? There, it's okay, right? But if you want to use the activity have, you don't say, can you start a project without have money? No. Without to have money? No. Always without having money. All right. So anytime you see a preposition with, without, at, in, on, right? By, after, before, against, for, in, and so on and so forth. Those are prepositions. And again, if you want an activity, it has to be gerund. All right, it has to be gerund. This is just knowing. And again, here you have to do something, Natalia, that I cannot do here because of the time that we got. And it's memorizing, again, the combination of prepositions and verbs. Okay, that's something that you have to do. But to help you with that, Natalia, in the presentations that you have in the documents, um, let me see if it's here. Yes. If you go to Unit 2 and you go to the lesson 1, you have two presentations. Gerunds is the presentation that we're learning here, and you have an extra presentation that you're going to work on your own. Okay, we're not going to have the time because this is actually not part of the lesson, but it's something extra that I'm giving to you. It's a list of verbs that is followed by certain prepositions. Okay, because you cannot use any preposition after any verb, right? Some people say, for example, think. If I ask you that in Italian, what is or what are the prepositions that you can use after think, after the verb think or thinking? What do you say?
Thinking about.
Good, exactly. So about is one, and we can use only one more. What is the other preposition that we use?
Thinking on.
Close, close. It's going to be in this case off. All right. So only on, off, and about are going to be the correct prepositions for think. All right. If we use any other preposition, it is going to be incorrect. So you know that's a preposition. So in your example, you can say, I was thinking about gerund, and you complete your idea. Okay, that's an example with preposition plus gerund. Okay. For example, after interest, all right, or interested. What do you use after I am interested? What is the one preposition that we use after interested?
I am interested in.
Correct. Exactly. In, right? Always in. We don't use of, on, about. In this case, it's going to be in. Good. So you have another one. You can say, 2 years ago, I was interested in activity with the gerund, then the complement, right? So I'm giving you ideas because right now, to finish with this lesson, you need to give me examples using prepositions, and after the preposition, you have to use gerund. Okay, now you can use this presentation, Natalia. Again, I cannot show you everything. Actually, I'm going to show you just fast, but remember, you can go to the document and open it. You have a combination of many verbs plus the preposition. Okay, accuse of, at, to, admire, for, agree on, agree with, apologize to, for, gerund, right? Apply to, then you have with be, right? Believe in, belong to, blame for, care about, compare to or compare with. Then you have discuss with, right? Depend on, for, something, and so on. Okay, so it's in alphabetic order, not all of them, but I believe the majority of them and the most important ones, okay, until the W, that you can use and combine. And I'm giving you this list so that you can memorize some of them and you can apply them. All right, but the only thing that you have to do now, Natalie, this is extra. When you have the time, try to take a look at that and try to memorize the ones that you believe are important for you. All right, but for now, to finish the lesson, we are only going to, in the same document that we are working on, we are going to write only 3 examples using this logic. All right, give me 3 sentences in which you are using a preposition in any part of your sentence plus gerund. All right, so you need to mention an activity after your preposition. Any. Let's try not to use the prepositions, or actually, of course, we can repeat the prepositions, but not the combination of verbs, right? Sneeze without, good at, avoid by, arrived in after, against. Okay, so let's try not to repeat the combination of words. Of course, the prepositions are going to be repeated, but that's the task. Three different sentences with three different prepositions and combinations that you can have in mind. You can use the two that we mentioned, think and interested, and you can look for something extra. All right. I don't know if you have any questions about that, Natalia. Let me know, please.
I have to put the other examples when I review the presentation in the same document of the classroom.
Yeah, I mean, no, yes, that presentation is extra, right? You can check that presentation whenever you want. You can open that presentation if you want now to have one example with that, but that's only for you to check when you have the time, or to check now if for the third example, if you don't have anything in mind about prepositions, you can go to that document, open it, and you can have an idea from that. All right, but that's extra. You don't have to use it here. Later on, also you use it if you have the time, but it's not part of the lessons that we have to cover.
Okay.
All right, good. Let's do it then, please. Again, we're going to have 3 minutes more or less to write the three sentences with three different prepositions.
Okay.
Great. So I'm going there with you, and we go to our next lesson. Let's please. All right. Now, I'm here with you. Let's read those examples, please, Natalia.
Okay. Could you give me a coffee for taking away? We slept very well after listening that podcast. I will go to the job by driving my car.
Good, great. I believe everything's working good. Just one little detail in number two, but about number one, I'm going to give you other options, all right? But just remember that listening is always going to be with you, right? You always listen to something, right? Because that's part of the verb. They are like a couple. They are always together, all right? Listen and to. Great. Number two is great, and number three. Now, oh, something happens with number one in terms of the phrasal verb that we're using, and with this specific preposition. All right, but these are working perfectly. I'm just going to, no, not that one. I'm just going to mark the combination of words. Now, in this case, remember that sometimes, yes, it is possible to replace the idea of the purpose of something that mainly we use to, right? Infinitive, and then the base verb, right? For in this case, this is purpose. So it would be better if you say, for example, could you give me a coffee, right, to bring with me or to take it with me, it's going to be better in this case. All right, to take away perhaps is going to be not the best option, but in this case, again, if it's purpose, it's always better, always to use infinitive. All right, to bring it with me. All right, to take it home, to take it again along with me, let's say. So it's possible to use this, but again, it's not going to be the best option in this specific case, Natalia. All right, just because again,
Mm,
it's the purpose and the, let's say, the final goal of this activity, that is that coffee is going to be prepared to take it with you later on. All right, so again, if that's the finality of that, if that's the final objective, the infinitive is going to be the best option. All right, that's why again this is not going to fit good over here. We have to try to change it for something else. I don't know if, yeah, you can think of another possibility in using one preposition. It can be in this situation or in a different situation. But what do you say?
mm,
What comes to your mind?
um, I think takeaway is a common phrasal verb, but maybe here is more common for takeaway or to take away. But if I
To
have to choose another option, uh, maybe for um, bring into my home.
no, but in that it's okay. But remember, in those two cases, that's the objective that you have at the end, right? And as you were saying, it's better here if we say infinitive, to take away or to bring it home.
Okay.
All right, so it's going to be the same logic. So it means that the logic of your sentence has to change. All right, and again, perhaps we can change the entire idea, or after can you give me a coffee, you can use a different preposition to say something else that is not an objective at the end. Because if it's objective or purpose, it is better to use infinitive.
With another preposition.
Yes, that changes the meaning. Or you can change the entire idea if you don't find a preposition that changes the logic of the sentence.
Uh-huh.
But it's
Um,
possible. It's possible just to change the preposition, to change the idea, and not saying that this is the objective.
Will you give me a coffee for? Will you give me a coffee? Mm, by uh, by
It depends. It
bring
depends if it's going to make sense.
by bringing to my home.
No, in that case, it's not going to work because by is normally like the way in which something happens, right? And if you say, "Can you give me a coffee by?" it's not good because by is like again the path that you're using. Like in this case, right? I will go to the job by driving a car. So it's the way in which that happens. So in this
Mhm,
case, it's not going to work as the way.
mhm, mm. I don't remember the prepositions.
Yeah, again, it depends. For example, you can say, can you bring me a coffee before, all right, preparing my previous order, for example, right? Can you bring me a coffee
Mhm,
before preparing my previous order? Suppose you're right that we had two orders, but I want my coffee first. Okay, so
mhm,
before preparing my first order, or
mhm.
even can you give me a coffee, right? Um, let's try to think of something else. Um, you can say
After
after or
uh,
without also. How you can say, can you give me coffee without, right? Um, um, I don't know. Or yes, can you prepare a coffee for me without using this ingredient, for example? for example. Okay, you don't want to use that ingredient. Or after, you can give me the one with after, Natalia. What could it be?
Could you give me a coffee after giving giving me the milk?
Yeah, exactly. Let's again suppose that you have more than 2 different orders and you say that. Okay, so that's valid. Yes, let's change it, please. You can use the example with before, the example with without, or the example with after, but that's the idea over there. All right, the idea is that if you have a preposition, you have to use the gerund. Now remember, not every time that combination is going to be the best, because in the case of purpose, it is better to use infinitive. All right, it's going to be better to use infinitive if you're talking about purpose, right? I want to finish this, to do this in the future. All right, because you can say for doing this in the future, but in some specific cases like in this one, it's not going to sound as natural. It's better again and more natural if you use infinitive. All right, but again, for the rest of the ideas, it is working good. It's just again memorizing the combination of possible prepositions and verbs. And with the list that you have in the presentation I showed you, you only have to try to memorize the most important ones and look for other combinations that you can use in the future. All right, but with this, we are finishing with prepositions, Natalia. I don't know if you have any questions about them, so that we can give the introduction to the next topic, and we're going to finish it even next week. But let me know, do you have any specific questions?
With these prepositions, always the next word is a verb in gerund, right?
Yes, if you want to use an activity, it has to be the verb in the form of gerund. It cannot be base verb, it cannot be infinitive. But remember, you can use something. It means you can use an object. You can use a person. It depends on the idea. Okay, so it can be a noun. In other words, it can be a noun, it can be a pronoun, or it can be a gerund. But remember that a gerund is a noun. So in other words, after prepositions, you can use nouns and pronouns. And nouns can be people, nouns can be objects, nouns can be activities, and in other words, nouns can be gerunds. All right? So that's the rule after prepositions.
Okay.
All right, that's why again, it's never going to be okay if you use the base form. If you say dance, if you say to dance, no, it's always going to be dancing in that case. All right, good. Let's have that in mind. Let's just practice a little bit more, and let's give the short introduction for the next one. All right, but again, if you still have questions, let me know, please, as I'm going to the next presentation.
Okay. And the other presentation of the list is in what number of unit in the classroom?
Yeah, it's unit number 2 and lesson 1.
Okay.
Over there you can find it, and there you can practice those combinations that you got.
Okay.
All right, good. Now let's work on this short introduction about reflexive pronouns. I don't know if you know something about reflexive pronouns, Natalie. Just by reading the title, does anything come to your mind?
I think it's when you talk about using self, myself, yourself, themselves.
Perfect, exactly. Those are reflexive pronouns. That's correct. All right, but let me ask you, when do we use those words? When do we use reflexive pronouns? Myself, yourself, yourselves, himself, herself, and so on.
When you talk about an object is of your property, or something that is of you or of
Okay.
other person.
Okay, we're close. I think we're close, but I want to be sure if this is correct. I want to be sure the logic is good. Try to give me one example. What example can you give me? Anything to see if we're going to be using that correctly.
Mhm. Mm, I use that. Mm, I practice sport because I think is uh, I practice sport myself because I don't want to pay a gym.
All right, I think we're close. It's not, I mean, grammatically speaking, it can be good, but I believe it's not going to be the best way of using it, right? Because if you're saying I practice sports, then you say myself, there you can only use it with one good reason. And it's only if you believe that for you, practicing sports is not common and you're doing it as something very different as anything else that you do in your life. Okay, so if you never practice sports and in this time your practice is practicing sports and it's unique, different, surprising for you, for what you do in your life, it is good. All right. If not,
Mm,
perhaps no, because as we're going to learn now, just as the introduction, but next week, we only have four main ways to use reflexive pronouns. All right,
mhm,
four main ways. One, and again, this is just as the introduction, and I'm going to show you
mhm,
something also as I'm showing you this logic. You're going to practice with me, but so that we understand. All right, why what you're saying can be good, but only under certain circumstances.
mhm,
So take a look at this chart. This chart summarizes the four main ways to use and the four only acceptable ways to use reflexive pronouns. The first one, in number one, is when you do and you receive the action. Okay, in practicing sports, that's not the case, right? You are not doing
mhm,
and receiving the action. You're saying, I practice sports myself, so that can be part of another one, okay? But it's not part of number one. In number one is going to be anything that you do and you receive, okay? It's not your possession, no. It's only that as you do the action of seeing, you receive the action of being seen. In this case, I saw myself in the mirror, right? I am the subject in this sentence, and I am the object in this sentence, right? You can say that here at Zoom, right? If you say, I can see myself on the screen because I have a camera, right? And I say, I can see myself on the screen right now, right? You can also, you, Natalia, you can see yourself on the screen right now, okay? And we can
mhm,
see, right, ourselves on the screen. It means I'm looking at myself and you are looking at yourself. Okay, this is the first type when you do and you
mhm,
receive. The second
mhm,
type is emphasis on an action. Now, this can make your sentence correct, Natalie. If you say, I practice sports myself, but you only say that, Natalia, when it's something different, impressive,
mhm,
or when you want to say personally.
mm,
Okay, if that's not the intention of your sentence, that's why many people use this incorrectly, because they use myself every time, but it's not
mhm,
correct, right? It's not correct if we don't have this idea. So the second
mhm,
idea is when it's impressive. Imagine that you, again, if it's something different, again, imagine that you never do exercise, you never go to the gym,
mhm,
but you did it, right? And you
mhm.
say, hey, look, last week I went to the gym myself. I really did it. Okay, so it's just putting emphasis on something that is different, unique.
It's only for
All right,
put emphasis.
exactly, emphasis,
Mhm,
only emphasis over there. Or something impressive, imagine that you painted and that painting became famous. Okay, now you are famous, but few people know that because it's new. All right, but you can say, hey, I painted that work of art myself. I did it. All right, in that case, you are saying that not because it's different, but because it's impressive. Okay, so people say, wow, really, did you do it? You say, yes, I did it. I did it myself. Okay, so again, emphasis on the idea that you did it, but again, it has to be then as part of the complement and not the object. Like in this case, right? I saw the accident myself. In this case, it means something that you did personally. All right. In number 3, you have 2 options. And again, this is the introduction. You're going to practice this with me next week. Don't worry. It's with nouns. Okay, so you can say, here I can say, Natalia herself, right, finished the project yesterday. Okay, and there I'm putting emphasis not on the action, but on you, okay, on your name. So you, Natalia, your name is receiving the attention. In case number 2, the entire action is receiving the attention. That I painted that work of art, that entire action, me painting that, is impressive. But in this case, Natalia herself, right, finished the project yesterday. The important thing there is you, okay, Natalia herself. And this can be the subject or this can be the object of your sentence, right? Imagine that, again, in the example here, this is a famous person, okay? This is very common with famous people, with celebrities. So you say, I saw Donald Trump himself in the street. Okay, why? Because it's not common. I believe it's interesting, and the attention is only on Donald Trump. Okay, Donald
Yes.
Trump himself, right? And the last one is by myself. This only means alone. That's the only purpose of by myself, by yourself. It only means alone without any help, right? You can say, yesterday I went to the cinema myself. That's it. Okay, it's not impressive. It's not emphasis. It's not personally. It's not doing and receiving the action. No, you are only saying, I went to the movies alone. That's it. All right. So those are the 4 ways that we are going to be practicing next week that we need to know. All right. Now, of course, we can have questions, but I don't know if you have one specific question, sorry, about this information before finishing the class, Natalia. Let me know, please.
In the first case, where is the emphasis? In the action?
No, in the first case,
myself.
exactly. In the first case, as you see over here, the first case doesn't have emphasis. The emphasis is only in case number 2 and number 3.
Okay.
Exactly. In number 1, you are just saying that the subject does the action and the same subject receives the action. Okay, so it's not emphasis, it's just this reciprocity of doing and receiving the action at the same time. Okay, you can say, for example, I slap myself. I touch myself. Okay, no emphasis. I'm just describing something that I'm doing to myself that someone is doing to themselves. All right, so no emphasis, just a very concrete description of something.
If I say I prepare my food myself, for myself,
That could
that's
be,
okay?
but that's going to be more of an emphasis because in that case you are not receiving something. You can prepare that for yourself, but when you say food is the object, right? You're going to say I prepare, food is the object, then here for myself. Indirectly, yes, this is still part of number 1. It's not the direct case, but in an indirect way you are receiving the action. But to practice here in number 1, you have to be the direct object, not the indirect object. Okay, in your example, you are the indirect object. You are receiving the action, but indirectly, not directly. All right? And to be part of number 1, you have to be the direct receiver of something. You can say, for example, I prepared myself for that situation. Okay, in that case, you are the direct object. Okay, so any type of sentence in which you
But
directly
this example,
Mhm. Yes, go ahead, Nat.
this example will be more close to the second example, to the second case. I saw the accident myself. If I say I prepare my food for myself, it's more close than the second case, not the
Again,
first.
if you only want to transmit the idea, okay, with this we finish. And if in your idea, you only want to transmit that you're receiving the final product, is going to be close to number one. But if your intention of saying I prepared the food not for myself but only myself is going to be close to number two. Okay, so it depends how you show that information. It can be part of number one or number two. It depends if you put emphasis on you receiving the action or emphasis on something unique and or on the action that is unique or different. Exactly.
Okay.
All right, so let's have it there. Please take a look at that because actually I'm going to copy and paste. This is going to be in your document because we're going to learn and practice. It's over there. So if you want, remember, we're going to go back to this next week. You can try to take a look at that to try to understand it a little bit more. And we practice that again in the next class. All right. Now I'm sharing, please, the survey, Natalia. Let's fill that out. That's going to be it for now. I hope you have a good night, a good weekend, and see you next week.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Good weekend.
You're welcome. Thank you. Bye-bye, Natalia.
Bye.